Hello and welcome to a new vlog and video in cooperation with ReiseJung. We're taking a look at days 5 and 6 on board our cruise with the Swiss Diamond in the Netherlands. But actually today we are starting in Germany. We are docked in Leer, where we arrived in the last video. And in this video we're then heading on to Sneek and Harlingen. We're starting in the morning in Leer and we took a bus to Papenburg, and of course we are visiting the famous Meyer shipyard there. Shipyard that is building some of the biggest cruise ships in the world, and we are going to get a tour around the shipyard. We're starting our tour right with our bus on the yard grounds, but there it was not allowed to take any pictures or videos, and after that we are going to the visitor center. Of course there it was allowed to take some pictures. The exhibition starts with a very well produced movie that is showing a bit about the ships. After that we have another movie which explains the history of the shipyard, and then we get into a room where you can see some of the ships as models that the Meyer yard has built. Some of them already been part of my videos, some of them will be part of upcoming videos, so it is very interesting to see those beautiful ships that have been built here at the Meyer shipyard. Here we can see the grounds of the shipyard, and this is what they think the future of cruising looks like. Of course, to me those ships have nothing to do with cruise ships anymore. They just look like buildings ashore, but they don't have any maritime aspects anymore. So I prefer the old school style of ships. But of course that is just their idea of what the future may bring. But the most impressive part, of course, is a look into the construction hall, which is an extremely big building. We can see the cruise ship Disney Destiny here inside this hall, and that gives you a perspective of how big this hall actually is. After that you can see some mock-up cabins of different cruise ships the Meyer shipyard has built. You can also see the propeller of a cruise ship, and here we can take a look in the second construction hall of the Meyer Werft Meyer shipyard. So it is very impressive to see this shipyard. I would highly recommend taking a tour. It's also possible to go through this exhibition center without a guided tour, but then you don't understand how it actually works. So I can highly recommend doing this with a guide. Then you will learn a lot about the ships. We then went back with the bus to Leer, and as soon as all guests were on board, we were leaving Leer, heading for Sneek. So we are heading back into the Netherlands. Here we are in the lock of Leer, and as you can see the water is brown again, but as I said, this is not because the water is dirty or because of high water, it's just because of the tide and the sediments that the tide is taking and bringing, and therefore the water is brown. Here we just saw the Warsteiner Admiral excursion ship, and now we're leaving the river Leda and we're back on the Ems. We're now passing the Jan Berghaus Bridge again, one of the biggest bridges of its kind in Europe, and it was opening actually again, this time just for us, so that was a nice surprise to see this impressive bridge open again. And after that we're sailing on the same way like yesterday back to the Netherlands. Then it was time for yet another fantastic lunch on board, and after that we were reaching the Ems barrier again, Ems Sperrwerk. As it was the same way like yesterday, now a lot of passengers were in the cabins asleep or taking time for themselves. Also, this is a big advantage of cruising during the day. It is more relaxing than spending the whole day in port and maybe doing excursions all day long. So that's why we try to have only half a day in port and then a bit of sailing time. Even if it's the same way like the day before, it's still always relaxing to sail during the day. Here we can see the so-called Dollard, which is a bay of the river Ems, and as you can see the river is extremely wide here. We're also passing the city of Emden again, we're meeting some ocean-going ships, but we are now heading back to Delfzijl, where we then reach the Netherlands again, and we are also leaving the Ems. We are continuing on the canals again. First we will be on the Ems canal once again, passing Groningen again. We are sailing also on the Van Starkenburg and Princess Margaret canal, again to reach Sneek. Here we are in the lock, and that means we're now back at the canals. As I said, the Ems canal is not too spectacular, so we don't see too much of that here in the video. Here we can see the fantastic dinner of day 5 on board of the Swiss Diamond. And in the evening there was a beautiful sunset. Here we can see Harlingen in the background, passing the city this time without stopping. And here we can see the beautiful sunset in the evening. Here in Groningen there are also a lot of different low bridges. Some of them have to open for us, so that's why we are going a little bit slower here as we are approaching those low bridges. This bridge is completely lifted for us. As you can see, the whole bridge is lifted, and here we have a railway bridge which is high enough. And that's it for day number 5 on board of the Swiss Diamond. And on day 6 I already woke up in Sneek. We have already reached our destination once again ahead of schedule, and that means we have a bit more time to discover the beautiful city of Sneek. With a very nice docking location. Takes about 10 minutes to reach the city center, and Sneek is a perfect location for shopping. Even my favorite store, the Sting, has a shop here, and of course I bought something there once again, and then it was time to discover some more sites of Sneek. The main site of Sneek is the waterport, which we can see here, also extremely beautiful. And Sneek is a very nice cruise destination because it offers good shopping opportunities. It offers beautiful buildings and a lot of cafes and restaurants. Also here there are a lot of canals, a lot of water in the city, and of course if you're always only staying half a day in a city, it's not always possible to go shopping there. Sometimes the shops are still or already closed, but in this case all shops were open, so it was of course also a perfect destination for shopping. Here we can see a few more impressions of the city, and we're now heading back into the city center. Not for shopping, but for trying some local beers again. As you can see, this is a very local beer from Sneek, and also some other interesting Dutch and Belgian beers can be tried here in the several bars and restaurants. And of course a typical Dutch snack is also offered. That also has to be at least once done when you're in the Netherlands. And then it was time to head back on board, and now something very special is going to happen. Because we are now sailing to Harlingen, and we were expecting to travel on the Princess Margriet Canal, the IJsselmeer, and then on the Wadden Sea. But instead our captain asked us if we were okay with taking a different route, because there is a canal which is basically never seeing any cruise ships, but we're small enough to use it. So he wanted to try it, and of course we were very happy about this decision. So we're now going on the so-called Van Harinxma canal. I've never seen a cruise offered on this canal before, so that was very, very special. Also by the faces of the people ashore when we were sailing past them showed me that there are not many river cruise ships sailing. So that was very, very special. And here we already are on this canal. We're now going past Leeuwarden, which is the biggest city on the canal, and there are some very, very narrow bridges we have to go through. For example, the railway bridge HRMK, which we can see here, has to turn open for us. And as you can see, it looks tiny. It doesn't look like we're gonna fit through, but we actually did fit through, but there were only a few centimeters on each side. But luckily we have a very experienced nautical team which is bringing us safely through those very narrow bridges on our way to Harlingen. Here we can actually see a river cruise ship, but this is not here for a cruise. It is a very old ship which is used as a refugee accommodation. I haven't seen this ship in use for cruises in several years, so I don't think it will be ever sailing again as a cruise ship, but it was here as a refugee ship. That's what nowadays is happening to almost all old river cruise ships, which are deemed too old and not modern enough to be used with passengers. They are now used for refugees. Here we have yet another very narrow railway bridge we have to go through. Also this one has to be turned open for us, as you can see here. And now our captain has to bring us through this very tiny bridge again. And there are a lot of these obstacles on this Van Harinxma canal. That's probably why there are not so many cruises on it, especially also because we are the maximum size that is possible to sail on that canal. With a ship with a length of 110 meters, it's already not possible to sail on that canal, so 95% of all river cruise ships are too big to sail here on this canal. There are also a lot of aqueducts again, and of course we can see some more animals. There are a lot of horses and cows to be seen whilst sailing on this very scenic canal. We're now sailing past the small village of Dynum with a very beautiful church, the St. Janskerk. And then we have this very typical impression of Friesland whilst sailing through beautiful nature. The next big city we are going through is also the most impressive part of this whole canal. It is the city of Franeker, because now it's gonna get actually very narrow. We will just have a few millimeters left on both sides, because here in Franeker there is the tightest point of the canal. There is a bridge which only leaves a few centimeters of space, and behind the bridge immediately there is a sharp bend to the left, and it looks like that it's impossible to go through there with our ship. Even seconds before going through there I was pretty sure that we are too big to go through there, so as you can see it's gonna get very narrow. The bridge is now opening for us, and you can see directly behind that there is a sharp bend to the left. We were almost at the wall on the port side of the ship, and on the starboard side we were already in the trees with our funnel tree here on the right side. As you can see, is extremely close to the ship, whilst there's also not much space left on the left side. That was extremely narrow, but as you can see our captain managed to get us through there, and now we're continuing on to Harlingen. There are a few more narrow bridges that we have to pass, and then we are reaching one more lock, and then we are in Harlingen. With reaching the lock in Harlingen, that means also that we are reaching the Wattenmeer. That's the Wadden Sea, which is an intertidal zone, meaning that it is a shallow body of water between continental Europe and the Frisian Islands. But we will see a bit more about this in the next video. After dinner we then reached the lock, here you can see it, and we're now leaving the canal, and we're now actually on the Wadden Sea. So we're actually on ocean waters, salt water, and tomorrow on day 7 we will also sail on the Wadden Sea, but that will be the topic of the next video. Here we can see a beautiful river cruise ship called Beljour. Unfortunately it's in very bad shape, as it is also used as a refugee accommodation, and I don't think it will ever be again in service, as its condition is actually pretty bad. We're then sailing past the docking location of the ferries. Those ferries are going to the Frisian islands of Terschelling and Vlieland. Unfortunately there was no ferry in port right now. We're now heading to the exit of the port, but just to turn around and then dock at our docking location, which is close to the city center. We're then staying overnight here in Harlingen, and as we arrived a bit earlier than planned, we have also some time to leave the ship and discover a bit of Harlingen also in the evening. Here you can see the Wadden Sea in the background. And here we have docked, and now it's time to leave our Swiss Diamond and head into the city. But actually we didn't go in the city first, but we stayed here in the port because there is a brewery, and of course there are some beautiful ships in port which are of course worth seeing. And then we went to the brewery to try some of their beers, did a little beer tasting there and enjoyed the beautiful sunset. And then we wanted to head back to the ship, but we heard some music from the city center, so we decided to head to the city center, and there was a party organized from one restaurant with a lot of people, drinks and a DJ. So we stayed there for a while, and that's it for day number 6. In the next video we will go out on the Wadden Sea with our ship and with the speedboat. Here you can see when this video will be uploaded and the name of the song. As always, I'd like to say thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to comment, like, subscribe or share the video link, and I hope to see you in my next video then.